Hello, Chris Brasure here. I want to visit with you about the three common phases of treatment for people who have recently suffered a traumatic brain injury. When people come in and want to talk about their traumatic brain injury, one of the things they talk about a lot with me is that they have no idea what the road ahead looks like as far as treatment, especially if it just happened. And we have that conversation, and I've had that conversation numerous times. So I thought I'd discuss that. And this is, of course, every traumatic brain injury is different, but there's really three phases, at least at the beginning of the traumatic brain injury, that you can expect. The first one can involve acute care. The second one can involve what's called post-acute care. And the third one may involve what's called long-term care or rehabilitation. Now, the first one is acute care, and that usually happens at the hospital, and you may find yourself there or a loved one there wondering what's going to happen. And it really just depends, obviously, on what how badly the brain was injured. And typically, that is one of the shorter periods in cases that we've seen. What's important to remember is during this time, in order to think about the future, it's important to talk to either a caseworker, a social worker that the hospitals usually have on staff about what to expect in the future. Now, after the acute care, there's typically post-acute care, and that can either be inpatient or it can be outpatient. And inpatient involves a stay like in a hospital or a rehabilitation facility. And the outpatient would typically involve about 1 to 3 hours of some kind of a cognitive rehab, a rehabilitation. And that just depends on what the care team says. Then the third stage is, and sometimes can be long-term care facilities if the traumatic brain injury is that serious, or home care. Now, what's really important in these last two phases, and particularly the third phase, is to talk to, if you have an insurance company, to talk to them about what kinds of things are covered. For example, and these are some of the common ones I hear from people. First, transportation to and from a place to get therapy. And one of the reasons that's important is because if the traumatic brain injury victim's in a wheelchair, that may not fit into the person's vehicle, or they may not even have a vehicle. Second is, what about medications? For example, only a registered nurse or a specialized caretaker can dispense medications. And so you want to make sure and talk about your insurance coverage on whether or not they will cover that registered nurse to dispense medication wherever your loved one is. And one of the things we hear, I've heard frequently recently, is you may anticipate an issue with what's called medical necessity, where an insurance company doesn't want to cover something because they say it's not medically necessary. And there's no magic bullet to deal with that. It's usually on the appeals process, which can be really time-consuming and frustrating. But usually that's laid out in your health insurance policies. But the important thing there that I've seen is for your doctor to really explain to the insurance company what is medically necessary and why that treatment is medically necessary. And so this is, I hope, a helpful roadmap